Well, welcome back to our stage, Peter. It's so good to have you here and for a conversation that I think many of us will leave much smarter from. So Peter and I were chatting backstage about some of the seismic shifts happening in the financial services space from a variety of converging factors. And so I want to just have you please set the scene for us. What are we witnessing? What's going on in this world?
Sure, and thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for all of you for attending. Well, I think it's important to put the digital transformation of financial services that's happening in the context of the wider transformations happening. So the digital transformation of financial services, which we'll talk about in more detail, in and of itself is extremely important, but it's happening in the context of the AI transformation and the compute transformation, as well as in many ways a geopolitical realignment. So when you put the confluence of those transformations happening pretty much at the same time.
Which I'll add are just kind of the bread and butter of what Concordia convenes around, right?
Yes.
These are the big themes of UNGA this week.
Yes,
and
that's right. Concordia is the perfect phrase.
I had to plug it.
And I mean, those, I think when you put those together, it's once in a century transformation, actually. So it's certainly the most exciting set of transformations that I've had the good fortune of being part of in my career.
So kids will read about this moment someday.
I would think so. Yes, they will.
Love it. So how does this actually apply in the financial services world? What do you see shaking up? Can you speak a little bit about, let's start with real world assets.
Yeah, so I think it's important to sort of get clear about what they are. So essentially, real world assets are essentially tangible assets or intangible assets that really exist and operate outside the crypto or digital ecosystem. So they're not on chain, et cetera, but they can be digitally represented and be put on chain or put on a digital exchange. So in that sense, a real world asset is tangible assets like a bridge or a boat or a building.
I was going to ask for an example, thank you.
Yeah. And the intangible assets are like a patent or an invoice, et cetera. So really, given the technology, as long as you can really datify the asset, you can represent it digitally and then put it on chain.
Okay. And then how would that differ from the nature-based assets that Teal's working through?
So nature-based assets are really like a special case of real-world assets in the sense that we're surrounded by ecological ecosystems. Those ecosystems generate goods and services just like any other net capital, like human capital, like all the human capital in this room, or the physical capital, like this building. So this building, the people in this room, they generate goods and services. Well, nature-based ecosystems generate goods and services like water purification, soil regeneration, more well-known carbon credits, biodiversity credits, et cetera. Those same things you can think of as an asset. They're a natural asset. And once you can datify those, you can tokenize them as well and put them on chain.
And it's real money we're talking about. Can you speak a little bit about the project in Indonesia and its valuation? I mean, the number was striking to me.
Yeah, sure. So I think just to circle back to real world assets, I think the thing that's important to note about real world assets and nature-based assets is the emergence of two new asset classes that makes them so different. So if you think about crypto and digital space right now, what's really kind of uninteresting about it from an asset management point of view is the investment universe itself, right? It's 20 or 30 speculative coins. That's never going to transform financial services. And so to transform financial services, digital or crypto really has to develop a much richer investment opportunity set where there's securities that are regulated by the SEC in particular, and they're rated AA or AAA rated digital securities that are investable by the broad investable community. And similarly with nature-based assets, the way we think about it at Teal and at Palm is that in order to save the planet, we feel like you have to value it. And what Colomen's about is actually valuing the assets that are in the Cayenne region or North Kalimantan in Indonesia. So that begins with datafying those assets, those nature-based assets. So datafying its carbon credits, its biodiversity credits, datafying its water purification, et cetera. And then once you have datafied that, then turning that datification into a tokenized asset and then distributing that asset as a financial asset that's rated and regulated.
How does one even begin to datafy an asset?
Yeah.
Like what kind of consensus building is required in that?
Yeah, I think that's the hard part.
Oh, okay. Not to put you on the spot.
So I think it's worth spending time on that, because at the end of the day, if you think about what financial assets are, they're really just packaged up data that trades in a regulatory format.
Okay.
Right? So every asset, whether it's a treasury bond or a claim on a corporation, or if it's a bridge, it all starts with the datification, right? The quantification of what is this? Because if I can't measure it, I can't quantify it. If I can't quantify it, I can't turn it into an asset. Mm-hmm. The SEC has to know, what am I regulating? The investor has to know, what is my investment in? What is my claim on? So at the end of the day, it really comes down to quantification and datification. The good news with respect to, say, nature-based assets, which are harder, is that there's rapid improvement in sensor technology, imaging technology.
Okay.
So we really are at the forefront now where you can actually measure and quantify using sensors what we call the ecological edge, right? And so you can have very low cost, very low energy usage sensors that are collecting data 24/7 of what's happening in an ecosystem or on a bridge, on an engineering project. So the ability of the world from a technology point of view to datafy itself is dramatically improving.
Which is why that AI revolution matters, right? Yes. That massive amount of data that's now being collected.
Yes, because that's an excellent question, because at the end of the day, the ecological data is very complex. Ecological systems are very complex, nonlinear dynamic systems. So they generate a lot of real-time data. So where the AI revolution happening with the compute revolution, happening with the sensor and imaging revolution simultaneously, is what's enabling the emergence of this new asset class. And both in real world assets like in bridges and tangible assets like that, where after all, the vast majority of assets are private, not public, right? And those, because they're private, they're more or less inaccessible. And since they're inaccessible, they're illiquid, and they're oftentimes poorly valued. So in nature's case, it's almost valued at zero many times. So that's why it's so overused, right? And so the reason you observed, say, in rainforests around the world, whether it's in Indonesia, Gabon, Brazil, et cetera, Colombia, you observed, trees being cut down for $1. It's not like bad behavior, it's bad economics. It's basically that there's a market failure in the sense that the benefits, the goods and services generated by those ecosystems is not captured by the owners. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the other key to the success is that, particularly with nature-based assets, is you need a multi-stakeholder approach. You have to bring in technology, partnered with the governments, partnered with the local communities to actually capture and fix the market failure and, generate and improve local economics. So the best alternative is not to cut down a tree for $1.
Which goes back to the geopolitics of it all then, because it
Precisely.
Doesn't work to just do this in one market or one space or, Borneo or Colombia, right? These are smaller markets. So how did the geopolitics play into everything that you're witnessing right now?
Well, I think that in many ways, the emergence, particularly around nature-based assets, our sort of view, as we said, is that you've got to get capitalism involved in the solution to sustainability. And our view is, for sustainability to be sustainable, it has to be profitable. So to get the investors involved and the broad investor community involved, you've got to get the stakeholders involved, you've got to get the governments involved, and you've got to get regulatory environment involved such that investors will bring capital to the market, because we need hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars in order to solve the problem. So without the sort of government alignment with the government, the NGOs, institutions, with the private sector, with the technology, I don't think it's a solvable problem.
Now, earlier we were talking about stable coins, and so that also goes into getting groups involved in the assurances and regulatory elements. Can you go into that a little bit? And
sure.
Since not all of us fully understand what a stable coin is.
Sure. So most people in this room probably understand what Bitcoin is, right? So Bitcoin is a speculative coin that has a lot of volatility, right? And because it's really driven by speculation for the most part, it's not really tied to any asset. With respect to a stable coin or something that wants to act like a currency or a means of payment, you really don't want all that volatility, right? You don't want it to behave like an asset where volatility can be valuable. You want it to just be about transaction risk. So you want to remove the volatility risk. So what stable coins were designed to do, whether it's ones in the United States or Singapore or around the world, they basically take a digital representation of, in many cases, the US dollar as a reserve currency. They tie it to that dollar so that it's more stable. And that's the idea, to make it stable. They also tie it to things like gold to stabilize it. So what you're seeing around the world is, in my view, is you're seeing the emergence of stable coins. And I think what you're going to see, particularly in the global south, where I operate a lot, is you're going to see the emergence of sovereign-supported gold-backed stable coins, and you'll see multi-countries coming together, I think over months and not years, coming together to support essentially a gold-backed stable coin that acts like a currency, a settlement currency for the global south. And I think that's motivated in part by a lot of the global south wants to minimize, it won't replace the dollar as a reserve currency, but they want to minimize their exposure and improve sort of their monetary sovereignty. The global north for a long time has turned to the global south and said, here's some paper, give us your gold. I think under this technology, this enables them to start to have an opportunity and an alternative to that. And I think you'll see that emerge. And I think we're not years away, we're probably months away from effectively a digital Bretton Woods.
Fascinating.
For those of you that are older like me. So you'll see a digital Bretton Woods, certainly a digital Bretton Woods that's around the global south.
It's an interesting week to be speaking about the Bretton Woods, to be sure.
Yes, it is.
So tie all this back to Teal. How does this derive or dictate the types of projects you work on, where you work, what you're doing, and what's innovative about it?
Well, with respect to Teal, was sort of born out of a frustration that we had that going from that datification or quantification at the ecological edge to the tokenization, productization, and distribution of something that's a regulated asset that's rated, which is what's required to properly price these nature-based assets or these real-world assets. And so there was a lot of frictions in that process. And we feel like, we have to operate at Mother Nature scale, not Homo sapiens scale. And on Mother Nature scale, we have to start being able to do things at scale. So we can't say, oh, we're going to tokenize 5,000 hectares this year. We need to be able to tokenize 10 million hectares and at scale. So it was really a platform, a technology platform driven to be able to operate at that kind of scale.
Yeah.
And so, the projects we have in, say, the one in Indonesia is about 9 million hectares. So we're trying to operate at a very large scale to sort of meet the demand we feel that Mother Nature is imposing upon us.
Now, I don't want you to give away all your secrets, but we do have a great question from the audience on what's the most investable natural asset today and why. So when you're thinking about that scale, the question, when you're thinking about all the different, individuals that your work touches, what is exciting to you?
I think the market, the natural asset that's ahead of all the other natural assets is carbon credits.
Okay.
Because, it's tied to a scientific definition of a carbon credit. One of the benefits of having been around a while and paying some attention, is you've been in a lot of markets that you've watched a lot of markets go from a frontier market to an emerging market to a, you know, mature market. And carbon credits, biodiversity credits, they're in that early innings, but they will mature, they will get regulated, they will become standardization. The technology is always ahead of the regulation, but regulation's starting to catch up. There's always abuse early in the markets, but you'll see things shake out. But for right now, I think the carbon credits is the most mature, but then you'll see biodiversity, water rights, et cetera, happen. There will be the emergence of nature-based asset as an asset class, just like there will be the emergence of real-world assets as an asset class. And these two asset classes have the potential to be bigger than any asset classes. So
Ladies
it's
and gentlemen,
massive transformation.
You heard it from Peter first. I would say follow that guidance, keep an eye on these markets and spaces, and consider moving to gold. I don't know if I can say that up here. I did.
The market's already kind of moving to gold, actually. So.
All right. Well, Peter, thank you so much for
you.
this tutorial and for this conversation and for all of your work. We do appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.